Shalom, 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 everybody, man. I hope everybody doing good, man. Facebook, YouTube, man. I hope y'all doing good. Welcome back. It's your boy, Shilo, man. Welcome back. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo. Reading with Shilo. We're going to pick back up, man. It's been a little minute. Bullshit, and I've been in it. But we're going to pick back up and let the reading commence for chapters 19 and chapter 20 of the BARAK and Deborah United by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. Chapter 19 and 20. I'm starting not to like when I miss a couple of days reading them. But we'll get in there. We'll see what's going to happen with BARAK and Deborah. Deborah found out her brother-in-law died. BARAK was quick on the draw. Well, what's up with me and you? Deborah want to know what's the deal. They haven't went to war yet with King Jabin and Sisera. It was a little heated exchange. BARAK was all pressed up against in the mountains when the charioteers was going by. A lot of stuff going on. But we'll see if they're going to go to war in any of these two chapters. We're almost to the end of the book. It's 25 chapters in the book. And we're going to be in the 20s today. Chapter 19 of BARAK and Deborah United by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. On the fourth day, after BARAK departed from the city of Kadesh, Sisera called an urgent meeting with King Jabin and his courtiers. When the king sent word to Sisera that he was ready to see him, he marched into the grand hall of the Canaanites at a rapid pace. Sisera was in full battle dress, with chest protection, a sword on his side, and a brass helmet on his head with a purple plume on the peak. He strutted in like a rooster. This better be urgent, for you too interrupt my meeting with the ambassador, said the king, looking disturbed. Bowing to the king, Sisera remarked, "Yes, it is, my lord. Our spies have reported to me that BARAK and this woman Deborah have taken control of Mount Tabor." "How many men are you talking about?" inquired the king, as he changed position in his copper throne. "Between 10 and 15,000. As my commander-in-chief of the Canaanite army, what do you make of this troop movement?" "It is simply an act of war, my lord. It appears that BARAK and Deborah want war." "Go on," the king ordered as he placed his elbow on the armrest of the throne. "When BARAK and Deborah took Mount Tabor, this meant that they intended to attack our forces in the Jezreel Valley and endeavor to terminate our control there," said Sisera. It was 20 years earlier that Sisera, shalom everybody, welcome in. It was 20 years earlier that Sisera conquered the Jezreel Valley. As a result, many Hebrews fled to the mountains and the hills where they lived in the dens and the caves. This easy conquest by his iron chariots enabled Sisera to divide the Hebrews north of the Jezreel from those of the south. In effect, his military operation helped contribute to the disunity and the separation between the Hebrew tribes. "Why did you think that Deborah and BARAK took control of this particular mountain?" asked the vizier. "There are at least two reasons. Tabor is a good place to assemble soldiers because it is a flat mountain. 2, it is the highest mountain that overlooks the Jezreel Valley. And from it, they can keep an eye on all of our troop movements." "What?" The king switched positions in his throne and remarked, "It seems like Deborah and BARAK are not so stupid after all. Furthermore, it appears that the rabbit has outfoxed the leopard," he said, leaning forward with his head facing toward Sisera. "If this mountain is such an important piece of real estate and a good lookout post, why in the hell didn't you take control of it before BARAK?" Cicero stood there dumbfounded with a sheepish look on his face. I never thought, you never thought what? Speak up, General, ordered the king. Well, they were just backwoods people from the mountain and cave, and I never thought that they would have the sense to organize an army of more than 500 men. 500 men. The king sat back slowly. I see. In the future, I would suggest that you remember that even a jackass has a brain, said the king, looking down at him in disappointment. Our spies, said Cicero, saw the Hebrew soldiers marching north, and they stopped at the city of Kadesh. Go on, prompted the king. Night fell and the spies went to sleep. But by the next morning, the spied learned, that don't sound right. The spied learned that the Hebrews, or the spies, should be spies, I think, learned that the Hebrews departed during the night and marched to Tabar, my lord the king. The king stood up and placed both hands on his hips and spoke. We have the most powerful army in Canaan and have experts in every field of knowledge. In spite of this, we have been outmaneuvered by this so-called mountain boy and his consort, Deborah. Now they can watch us like hawks, watch their prey, waiting for the first chance to pounce down on their victims. We, the mighty ancient Canaanite people, will become the laughingstock of the civilized world. Cicero made a gesture with his hands and attempted to speak. My lord, but the king interrupted him and continued. Barak and his woman have the best position they could want. Barak and his army have the protection on the north by the hills of Zebulun and the people of Naphtali. We look like fools, like fools. Isn't this true, Cicero? The king asked. Cicero hesitated to answer the question because he knew that he dared not displease the king. At that moment, he lowered his head slowly and answered cautiously, Yes, my lord, the king. Dressed in his purple tunic, which extended from his shoulders to his feet, the king turned around sharply in a stately fashion and sat down gracefully. There is one thing that troubles me. The king rubbed his chin and closed his eyes for a moment. Why would the Hebrew men want to go to war with such a small number and without chariots? He asked, raising his head slowly and with piercing eyes, looking at Cicero's direction. Cicero looked surprised. He squirmed and struggled to speak. His head moved in several directions at once. I don't exactly know. Perhaps they have armies hidden in the mountains north and south of the Jezreel and intend to surprise us. You know, Cicero, that I hate surprises. Barak will most likely attack us from the north. However, we shall need additional soldiers to protect our rear in case the Hebrews attack us from the south. I agree, my lord. At that moment, the high priest stroked his chin and appeared deep in thought, standing there in the panoply. What's a panoply? In the panoply, 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 Panoply. Standing there in the panoply. I wonder if it's some clothes, a certain type of clothing. Panoply. P-A-N-O. Pan up. It's not in here. Panoply. Let me check this one. Panoply. 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 Panoply, a full suit of armor, ceremonial attire, something forming a protective covering, a magnificent or impressive array, the full of a military funeral, a display of all appropriate partisans, a panoply. At that moment, the high priest stroked his chin and appeared deep in thought, and standing there in the panoply, in his ceremonial attire, in his full suit of armor, in something impressive array, his ceremonial attire. I think that's what it is. Panoply, in his ceremonial attire. The high priest stroked his chin and appeared deep in thought, standing there in a panoply of his office. Okay, it makes sense now. He wore a dark green brocaded robe with a light green sash trimmed in gold and silver. On his head was a conical cap. If it pleases the king, may thy servant, the high priest, say a word or two. You have my ear, O servant of Baal. When I researched the history of the Hebrews, I discovered that one of their leaders, Moses, took a census of the men from 20 years of age who were able to go to war. At that time, they were more than 110,000 men for the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali alone. And this was 150 years ago. And just what is the point? Asked the king, showing a little impatience. My point is that I am sure that their numbers have increased. Therefore, isn't it a good sense to conclude that they are able to muster far more than 10 or 15,000 men? Asked the high priest as he extended his hand. Yes, said the king, that makes sense. They must have reserve forces hidden away somewhere. The king then turned toward his advisor, Kenaz, an expert on Egyptian and Nubian affairs. Do you think we should send the Egyptian to Egypt for help? Kenaz threw his dark green tunic over one shoulder and spoke. Not at this time, my lord. And why not? Asked the king, rising up slowly. These are very unstable times in Egypt. From the reign of Ramses the Ninth, Libyan marauders having threatened the Theban capital, civil war has been rampant. Because the silver and the gold had been scarce, the economical distressed people have robbed the tombs of the kings and nobles. In view of this, the government at Thebes had to call in Nubian troops to restore the order. As you can understand, my lord, Egypt and our Hamitic brothers are in no position to send us help. I don't want to be surprised by these Hebrews. To whom can we turn? There must be at least a token force that Egypt can send. The Grand Vizier stepped 3 paces towards the king. There is no need, my lord, to send to Egypt for help. When we have friends nearby, continue. When can we can summon help from the nation of the east, from Ammon, from Moab, and from Syria? What makes you think that they will send help? Asked the king. Pointing towards the east, the vizier explained, these nations are the old enemies of Israel. They will be glad to get revenge because of their humiliating defeat over 80 years ago. Who was the Hebrew leader at that time? Ehud ben Geber. O king, I think that we need to do 3 things immediately. 1, call up the kings of the east. 2, summon all the Canaanite nations from Sidon down to the city of Dor. And 3, unite with all the Canaanite city-states from Megiddo and Tanakh to Beth-Shean. Then we can confront and defeat Barak and his buzzing bumblebee Deborah in the valley of Jezreel. Well, the king sat back on his throne and placed his finger on his chin. This sounds like a splendid idea. Yes, we shall go with the vizier's recommendation. From this day, I hereby appoint you responsible for the diplomatic negotiations to unite all of the aforementioned Canaanite nations. I will commence these efforts right away, my lord, the vizier promised and departed. Then the king commanded, Approach the throne, General Sisera. Sisera came near, stopped at the bottom of the step, but did a slight bow and saluted the king by bringing up his right fist briskly to his chest and stood at attention. I am at your service, my lord the king. General Sisera, many years ago, my father appointed you as commander in chief of his army because he saw skill and ability in you. However, within recent years, several events have made me wonder about you. The loss of over 500 elite soldiers and weapons at the Jaffa Pass, and now this spy debacle. My lord, but I was not present at the Jaffa Pass. I know that. Nevertheless, as commander-in-chief of my army, I hold you responsible for the conduct of your officers and soldiers. It is your duty to instruct your soldiers on how to behave and in every situation. Is that understood? Yes, my lord. The king then asked Sisera to come closer to the throne because he had something to say to him in private. The king whispered, Deborah and Barak outsmarted our spies and made us look like fools. Now, after the war is over, make sure you don't have to return in humiliation. Can I depend on you, General? Yes, my lord, said Sisera humbly, as he bowed. Finally, the king gestured to him to return to his former place. Oh, there is another matter. Do you think that we should attack Mount Tabor? No, my lord. I don't, my lord. Why not? Our losses would be too great. Barak, the mountain boy, has the advantage because he controls the high ground. This gives him the opportunity to roll down on us large boulders and hurls down rocks and stones like hail from heaven. Then what do you suggest? We move our armies into the Jezreel Valley and wait for him to attack. When they do, we can use our charioteers and horsemen against them and crush them like ants. This way, we can annihilate the forces of Deborah and Barak in one central location. Oh, your words are pleasing to my ears. You have my permission to take up the position as soon as possible and keep me informed of everything, ordered the king. Yes, my lord. Furthermore, when you defeat the Hebrew army, I want you to bring Deborah and Barak to me alive. I want them to stand before me in chains. In chains! Is this clear, General? Yes, my lord. You want them in chains, Sisera repeated and snapped to attention. There is one last thing. Deborah and Barak outwitted our spies and made us look like jackasses. Make sure that you do not return in disgrace with a defeated look on your face. Now you may leave. As Sisera stood before the king, it irked him to entertain the thought that Barak, the mountaineer, and his female consort could defeat him. He asked himself, what kind of man was this that needed to hide behind the skirt of a woman? He dubbed Barak the mountain boy who dashed over rocks and cliffs and who was scared to come out and fight. When the king finished speaking, the high priest Evid Baal said, O king, for the success of the war, I think it is only befitting to offer special sacrifices to our God, Baal, who needs to be pacified. Yes, I agree. When would you like to have this ceremony? The sooner the better. In a few hours would be good, my lord. When the time came, the priest blew the trumpets and announced that the ceremony for the sacrifice, oh man, my knee. When the time came, the priest blew the trumpets. To announce that the ceremony for a sacrifice was about to take place. For these ceremonies, the people gathered in the area of the temple, and next to the temple was a large statue of Baal. Before bringing up the sacrifices, the high priest rendered his prayer. O Baal, our God, Lord of the world, we beseech thee to grant us victory over the Hebrews and their leaders, Barak and Deborah. The priests heated a large fire in the stomach of the idol. They brought in 4 victims for a sacrifice. And 4. 2 Canaanite boys and 2 Hebrew captives. Damn. 1 male and 1 female. Bring forth the true Hebrews, ordered the high priest. Bring forth the 2 Hebrews, ordered the high priest. They brought the Hebrew, male and female, blindfolded with their hands tied behind their backs. The high priest placed his hand on the head of the female and recited, "This sacrifice is offered to thee, O Lord Baal, to grant us victory over the woman known as Deborah." The face of Baal was about 10 cubits wide and about 12 cubits high. He had thick lips and a broad nose. His stomach was open so that he could receive the human sacrifices. After they killed the Hebrew girl, they carried her over to the belly of Baal and cast her inside the hot flames. They repeated the same ritual for the Hebrew boy. The only thing that was different was that his sacrifice symbolized the victory over Barak. Finally, they sacrificed 2 Canaanite boys so that their idol god Baal could be appeased enough to grant them victory over the Hebrew army. When the high priest finished the sacrificial ceremony, the king, Sisera, and the vizier, and the rest of the courtiers returned to the palace. Sisera gathered up his war instruments, charts, maps, and rode off with the detachment of soldiers to where his army was in the bivouac, the bivouac. Let's see what it is. The bivouac. The bivouac. The bivouac. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Bivouac. I know it's a military term. I've heard it before. The bivouac. Mm-hmm. Temporary camp. The bivouac. It is the bivouac. Temporary camp. Sisera had a surprise for Deborah and Barak. He was not about to let his soldiers be trapped between 2 Hebrew armies on both sides of the Jezreel Valley. He did not want it to be said that the woman and the mountain boy defeated him. Will Sisera succeed? Chapter 20. The army of the Hebrews now occupied Mount Tabor, a flat-top mountain excellent for mustering troops and high enough to observe much of Sisera's troop movements. Tabor is located on the northeast side of the Jezreel Valley, not far from the southwest shore of the Sea of Chinnereth, which was renamed the Sea of Galilee. From Mount Tabor, the highest mountain overlooking the Jezreel Valley, Deborah and Barak looked due south in the direction of Mount Gilboa. Also, from this vantage point, they could see Mount Carmel and Megiddo. They walked around the mountain to check the physical features. At the foot of the mountain, on the northwest side, they noticed the spring of water that drained into the Kishon River to the southwest. The most common ascent to Tabor is on the northwest side. Barak's army took his route when they took this route. When they climbed to the summit, they ascended in a serpentine course. The path became steeper and narrower with the hairpin turns, and a few people slipped and fell. They passed by beautiful varieties of grass, oak trees, evergreen trees, and green bushes. Tabor has low peaks on the northwest side, leading to the hills of Zebulun and the city of Nazareth. However, the city of Nazareth is not in existence in the time of Deborah and Barak. On the second day that the Hebrew army encamped on Mount Tabor, The soldiers gathered the rocks and stones to hurl at the enemies. The Hebrews did not have many swords and spears in view of this. They used some slings and stones as weapons because the Canaanites had taken away their blacksmiths. Before Barak reached Mount Tabor, he sent out various groups of spies to keep a careful watch on all the activities and movements of the Canaanites. Barak read scrolls on warfare used by other Hebrew generals and warriors to increase his knowledge in preparation for the big battle to come. One of the scrolls he pursued was the Book of the Wars of the Lord, mentioned by Moses. The Books of the Wars of the Lord. Might have to look that up. Mentioned by Moses. Everything was on a high war footing. Sisera increased his military presence in the Jezreel, particularly on the main artery of the Kishon River northeast of the city of Megiddo. The Hebrews saw hundreds of chariots moving briskly up and down the valley along with thousands of horsemen and tens of thousands of infantrymen. The Hebrews knew that it would be only a matter of days before all hell would break loose. As Barak sat in his tent reviewing military matters, one of his guards entered. "General, a lieutenant is here to see you." "Send him in," ordered Barak. The lieutenant walked in and snapped at attention. "Our patrols have captured a group of people, General." "How many?" "5. And I believe they are spies," General commented the lieutenant. "Oh, you do, huh?" "That's up to me to decide what they are. They have the appearance of the heavenly moon." Now, what makes you think? I guess it's supposed to be think, but it says thing. What makes you think that they are spies? Barak asked gently, tilting his head to one side. The lieutenant extended his hand in gesturing. Their kind is not from around here." "Oh, I see. If you visited their country, your kind would not be from around where they live. Would that make you a spy?" I guess not," he stuttered. "Did you get their names?" asked Barak. The head man of the group said that his name, I think he pronounced Demetrius. Demetrius. "Do you mean Demetrius?" asked Barak, as he recognized the name and smiled. "Yes, that's it. Do you know him?" he asked with surprise. "Yes, I know him." "Does this mean that Demetrius has returned?" he asked himself aloud with joy and excitement. "Did you tie them up?" "Yes, General. I did according to the standard orders." "Good. Now untie them and bring them to me," Barak ordered forcefully. A short while later, the lieutenant and a few of his soldiers escorted the Greeks to Barak's tent. As soon as Barak heard them coming, he stepped out from his tent with a big smile. "Peace be with you, Demetrius. You have returned. You have returned to us." Then they embraced like old friends. "Peace, Barak. You look good in your uniform." Barak wore a white tunic and a dark blue vest with gold embroidered borders. "Thank you. And is everyone well?" "Yes, we all are here. My 3 medical assistants, my wife Isis, and my daughter Hepshetsu." Everyone looked pleased and smiled at Barak for his warm greeting. After that, Barak excused the lieutenant. "I want to apologize for any discomfort that my soldiers may have caused you," said Barak. "Come," invited Barak. "Come into my tent. I have water and food for you to satisfy your hunger and thirst." After his guests partook of the victuals, Barak asked the important question. "Oh, Demetrius, did you return to us to help with our wounded?" "Yes, that is true." "May I ask, what made you change your mind?" "Well, it was the dream that I had on the night that I slept in the Canaanite city of Tyre. In my dream, the wolves attacked my neighbor's sheep, and I did not help him. Then I ran away and felt very sad. After discussing this dream with my wife, my daughter, and my medical assistants, I decided to return to help you, General. Well, I'm very happy that you decided to return, commented Barak. My wife always tells me that there is a deeper meaning to our dreams if we think about them and apply them to our everyday lives. I have listened to her advice in the past and it has been very helpful to me. You are fortunate to have a valuable wife. Oh, yes, he is. You are fortunate to have such a valuable wife. Barak said, looking at her, not only has her wisdom benefited you, but also my people. Barak paused and lowered his head and thought for a moment. Now I want to introduce you to my people. He looked directly at Demetrius to see if this met with his approval. Whatever you think is best is all right with us, commented Demetrius. Then Barak called out aloud, "Guard!" The guard came and snapped to attention. "Blow the horn and assemble the people." I wish I knew how to do that thing. I can do it every once in a while. I can't get it all the way. Gotta find it. Blow the ram's horn and assemble the people. Yes, General. Yes, General. A short while later, Barak and his guests went out of the tent, and they stood on the elevated part of the mountain for everyone to see them. The news had spread like a windstorm that visitors were in the camp. As a result, the people were eager to assemble in order to learn what Barak had to say. The people were very quiet and pensive. Not one soul moved. A few moments later, Deborah and the princes of Issachar came up. Finally, Barak began to speak. Sages, elders, priests, princes, prophetess Deborah, officers, soldiers, and people of the Hebrew tribes, I greet you all with great love. Many of you know why I summoned you here today. For those of you who may not know, it is only befitting for me to inform you that earlier today, visitors came into our camp on their own free will. They come from Greece, a distant country west of the Hittite Empire. The Greek islands, Demetrius whispered softly in Barak's ear. Thank you, said Barak, and he continued. For the last 20 years, they have been studying in Egypt and Nubia. Now that their studies are complete, they were returning to Greece. Deborah and I first met them in the city of Tirzah more than a week ago. Their knowledge and learning is of a high quality, and because of this, I felt that their service would be very useful to us. Therefore, I have asked them to remain with us for a fortnight. Then Barak paused, and one of the elders said, Go on, Barak. We want to hear more. The soldiers of the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali are encamped in this mountain because we are expecting war any day now. Like any war, there will be injuries to our soldiers, and they deserve the best medical care that we can provide for them. Demetrius Lysimachus and his staff are standing to my right. They received expert training as doctors in Egypt, the most advanced nation in the world. His wife and daughter are both trained nurses. As of this moment, I have placed Demetrius as head over the hospital. I want you to give him and his staff your greatest respect and cooperation. If I find anyone faltering, the courts of the elders and I will deal with you the proper manner. The elders and I will deal with them. However, I know that you will conduct yourselves in the proper manner. If anyone has any questions or complaints, this is the time to utter them. Barak remained silent for a short while. When no one spoke up, he continued and said in jest, smiling, There may be some children here who are old enough to remember Moses when he stood on Mount Sinai. Then the people laughed at Barak's humor. At that time, Moses advised us that with these words, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. The crowd went wild, clapped their hands, shouted, and greeted the visitors with smiles and words with pleasantness. Moments later, the elders, priests, princes, and officers lined up and passed by the visitors, saluting them and expressing words of welcome and gratitude. Then Barak summoned the war council meeting of his staff officers, and other officials. This group included the princes, the princesses, the elders, the priest, Deborah, and Demetrius. The officials scheduled the meeting in the large headquarters tent at sunset. After the reception for Demetrius, Deborah returned to her tent. She and her handmaid shared the tent together, and Nachshon had his own tent nearby. Sarah, would you and Mary mind going down to the watershed to get some water? Asked Deborah. Surely, my lady, right away. Surely, my lady, right away. And take Nachshon with you. As Deborah sat in her tent alone, she reflected on the impending war. She knew that it had to come, but once it was over, she realized that things would be normal again. A little later, though, Deborah stood up in her tent. She looked through the opening and saw Barak talking to one of his officers. She wanted to go to him and embrace him because she felt deep down that he had almost everything she wanted in a man. Look at that girl over there. I want him. Look at him. Look at him. You peeping on it. Why you peeping me? Everybody knows that I'm a prince. Hey, hey. She peeping. Deborah stood up in her tent. She looked through the opening and saw Barak talking to one of his soldiers. She wanted to go to him and embrace him because she felt deep down that he had almost everything she wanted in a man. Deborah was beginning to think of Barak as her man. After all, didn't the Lord ask her to send for him? And didn't the Lord remove Caleb from her life? There must be some special meaning in that. At last, Sarah, Mora, and Nachshon returned with the water. We were able to get 3 skin containers, my lady, and Nachshon helped us to fill all 3, said Sarah. Then Mora and Nachshon looked at each other and smiled with interest. That's great, oh Sarah. I have to go to a staff meeting with the officers, the elders, and with Barak. Would you like to walk over there with me? Surely, my lady, said Sarah, smiling. Mother Deborah, I'll talk with Mora until Sarah. Mother Deborah, I'll talk with Mora until Sarah returns, said Nachshon. Thank you. That's a good idea. When Deborah arrived at the large tent of the military headquarters, she noticed 3 terracotta lamps burning, which provided the light for the tent. She greeted all the elders, princes, staff officers, and Barak. They smiled at one another, and Deborah was pleased. Barak was waiting for 2 more people. After they arrived, he opened the meeting. The head priest of the city of Kadesh opened the meeting with the prayer and ended with the priestly 3-fold blessing. May the Lord bless thee. When the priest finished his prayer, Barak spoke. We're here today to discuss plans for the war. And it is just a matter of a day or so before the war will break out. By the way, my staff estimates that the enemy has us outnumbered 5-1. Now, I would like to hear the report from Captain David. General, all the food and water supplies are ready, including all bandages and medicine for the wounded. Good. I want to give you all the medical supplies I want you to give. all the medical supplies to Dr. Demetrius. Dr. Demetrius turned to Barak and requested, General Barak, I will need for you to designate about 100 men to help bring the wounded soldiers to the hospital tent. Then Prince Zakin from the tribe of Issachar stood up and remarked, I would like to offer 100 men from my tribe to assist Dr. Demetrius and his staff. Thank you, O Prince. This takes care of that. Now, Captain Enoch, give us your report. The weapons, slings and stones, spears and rocks are ready, and we have strengthened the ramparts that surround the top of the mountain. Those men who do not have swords and spears, we have issued farming tools as their weapons. What about the training of the men? Inquired Barak with concern. We trained them all in body movements, riding horses, and how to take the enemy's swords and spears. And we taught them how to use them, explained Captain Enoch confidently. Captain Enoch, have you heard anything from our spies yet? No, General, but I am expecting a report any time now. Barak remained quiet for a moment and appeared to be in deep thought. Then he asked, Do any of you priests or elders have anything to say? Yes, answered one of the elders. Just before the battle, the priest must blow the trumpets and recite the conditions that exclude some soldiers from war duty. Thank you, elder. Are there any more questions? Oh, General Barak, said the senior priest, we understand from your own words that our forces are outnumbered 5-1. I heard a rumor that you refused help from Prince Abahu. Is that true? Yes. However, it is also true that I refused his help because he based his offer on harsh conditions. He wanted me to persuade the leaders of the northern tribe to accept his leadership. If they refused, he wanted to have them murdered. As a result, I refused to be a party to his scheme. Don't you think it would have been better to have had his soldiers so that they could help us get rid of Jabin and Sisera? Asked the priest. No, I don't. We must not trade one cruel master for another just to say that we have a Hebrew king. The end does not justify the means. The scheme proposed by Abahu would have plunged the Hebrew tribes into civil war, and that is too risky. If civil war came, more people would die from our own hands than by the swords of Sisera. I can take some cruelty from Sisera, but I shall not take the oppression and dictatorship of Prince Abahu, he argued, shaking his head from side to side in opposition. Meanwhile, a young officer raised his head and received recognition to speak. Some of our elders tell us that we have enough men from the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali to put in the field more than 200,000 soldiers. If this is true, why are we calling only 10,000 men up? Deborah, would you like to answer the question? Asked Barak. I'll be glad to answer. The Lord asked for only 10,000 and no more. At that instant, one of the guards outside of the tent handed Barak the letter from Sisera. Barak read the letter, then read it to the council. In the name of Jabin, king of the Canaanites, I, General Sisera, order you, Barak and Deborah, to surrender to me by noon tomorrow. If you do this, your soldiers will be allowed to go free. If not, our gods, Baal, Ashtaroth, and Mot, will deliver you into our hands. Then some of you will be sold into slavery, and the rest of you will be sacrificed in the fire to our gods. Furthermore, don't think that your God will save you from our hands. He hasn't delivered you during the last 20 years, and he will not save you now. This is the only warning you will receive. General Sisera, you have heard the letter. Shall we send him an answer? Everyone remained silent. At last, Elder Ram spoke. If no one has anything to say, then I do, he informed them, looking to one side of the tent and then to the other. He raised his chin high. General Sisera has the gall to ask Barak and Deborah to surrender to him? Then he insults our intelligence further by telling us that our soldiers will go free. His words are only lies, lies, lies. Let's not honor him by giving him an answer, he pleaded, looking around the tent. But let him wait and sweat until the water runs down into his britches, he urged. As the people laughed in agreement. Does anyone else have anything to add? Asked Barak. A young officer raised his hand. When will we attack? I don't really know. I guess Prophetess Deborah will give us that information, Barak answered slowly and cautiously. When do we start taking instructions from a woman? Listen, young man. If I don't question her, don't you? Thanks, Barak, Deborah interrupted. I would like to speak for myself. She spoke softly and calmly. I would like to remind my brother that you received your first instructions from a woman, and she, no doubt, was your mother or another woman. In addition, you probably have heard that some say that I am a prophetess, but I am not the first one. Miriam, the sister of Moses, was a prophetess. And that is not all, my young brother, she said calmly. She spoke to him the way a mother would speak to her own son. Have you not heard that Abraham, our father, listened to his wife, Sarah, in the matters of Ishmael? And the Lord agreed that she was right. Furthermore, have you not heard from the elders that the Lord revealed himself to Rebekah, the wife of Isaac, and told her that the twins were within her? Now the Lord has revealed to me, my brother, that we must do to defeat Sisera. And if you have a problem with accepting this, then you are not rejecting me, but you are rejecting the Lord. Very well put, Deborah, said one of the elders. Very well put. You handled yourself very well, remarked another elder. After Deborah finished speaking, Barak gave her a compliment. The manner in which you presented yourself was great, and I sincerely hope my officers have learned something from you, he commented as he looked over at the young officer. Deborah was proud of Barak because he wanted to speak up on her behalf. In addition, she wanted to keep the respect of the officers, princes, and elders because of her own wits and merits, and not just of what Barak could say for her. For many years, Deborah fervently hoped that the Lord would put an end to the Canaanite oppression. For this purpose, she prayed day after day, month after month, year after year, encouraging her people to do the same. Now, her hopes were coming closer to fruition. The Lord had revealed himself to Deborah and told her what to do. There were three major phases to the command of the Lord. The first one was to call Barak, and this she did. The second phase was to tell him that the Lord commanded him to take 10,000 men from the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali and bring them to Mount Tabor. And this they accomplished. There remained one final phase not yet accomplished, and that was the victory over the enemy in battle. Deborah had come to that final moment, and she was very hopeful that her people would be free at last. She admired Barak more and more, and she prayed to the Lord that he would help Barak to increase his spirituality and to trust in him. Deborah concluded that once he had arrived at that spiritual level, she would be ready to accept his marriage proposal without hesitation. She knew that he would have to go through more trials and tests before he would be ready to accept a higher spirituality. He was almost there, but not quite, she thought. Nevertheless, she was optimistic because she wanted him. She was beginning to feel that he belonged to her. Returning to the war agenda, Barak said, I have something to add. We will divide our army into two segments. Each segment will contain 5,000 men. I shall lead the frontal attack, and Captain Enoch will head the second segment. Captain Enoch, you will remain about 500 cubits behind me. Your men will act as a reserve unit to protect my rear against any surprise attack. Deborah and the elders will remain here at Mount Tabor, and if they have any information to relate to us, they can do it by flag signals or by horse messengers. When Barak finished explaining his point, Deborah spoke. If we have completed the most important matters of this meeting, I would like to be excused to leave. Everyone nodded his head in consent, and Deborah departed. That was chapter 20. That was chapter 20. We'll go ahead and read 21. We'll go ahead and read 21. So we can get it out of the way because it's an odd number. 21. A little while after Deborah departed from the meeting, a man approached one of the guards at the rear of the tent and whispered in the ear of the guard. The guard then waved at General Barak, who was talking at the front of the tent. Captain Enoch, will you see what that man wants who is standing next to the guard? Yes, General. As the captain went out to the opening of the tent, he could see that the man was the chief of his spy network. The man whispered something in the ear of the captain. Are you sure? Asked the captain. Did you check your information? Yes, I got the same report from all 4 of my spy units, he said confidently. Thanks, Chief, commented the captain. The general will want to know this. The captain walked back into the tent, He stood at the front, but to the side of the tent, and waited for Barak to finish talking. After Barak had finished explaining his point, he turned to the captain. Yes, Captain Enoch. The captain walked over to General Barak and whispered in his ear. Barak opened his eyes wider and looked extremely solemn. Then the captain returned to his place. Alas, Barak grimaced, as he took a deep breath and exhaled suddenly with deep concern. All the officers, princes, and elders in the tent were tense and silent. You could discern by the glances on their faces that they were wondering what was happening. What was the problem now? Some inquired. The people of the Hebrew nation, I have sad tidings. Barak breathed with a slow, deep voice. There has been a great change in the number of men, horsemen, and chariots in Sisera's army. 2 weeks ago, we knew that he had about 900 troops, 900 chariots, 10,000 horsemen, and 30,000 footmen. At that time, he had us outnumbered about 5 to 1. Now everything has changed. Changed, echoed the other officials. Yes, the chief of our spy network has reported to me that Sisera now has 3,000 chariots, 15,000 horsemen, and 50,000 footmen. These new numbers give Sisera 68,000 men arrayed against our small 10,000. This situation is compared to a fight between a lion and the chicken, and we are the chicken. Alas, 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 said the various elders as they looked at one another and shook their heads with grief and disbelief. Then Barak continued, it was bad enough when they had us outnumbered 5 to 1. Now they have us outnumbered almost 7 to 1, he pointed out as he gestured with his hands. General, are you sure that the number of Sisera's armies is correct? He asked one of the priests. Yes, I am. They are very close estimations. The report that we have is that more than 14 kings have joined up with Sisera. More than 14 kings have joined up with Sisera. Even if our numbers are off by as much as 10,000, and I don't think they are, the fact remains that Sisera will still have 58,000 soldiers, and that it's a lot of men, he emphasized, looking around the tent at the solemn faces. General Barak, from whence came these great numbers? Asked Captain David. 2 large armies came across the Jordan from the nations of Ammon and Moab. Moreover, our spies have sighted a 3rd army moving from the south from Tyre and Sidon. Finally, a 4th army marched down from Syria, said Barak, pointing at the map. General, What do you make of this large horde that Sisera raised against us?" asked Captain Enoch. "I'm not sure, but it could be that he thinks that we are going to marshal all of the 12 tribes of Israel against him." What do you think we should do, General?" inquired one of the elders. "You want the truth?" "Yes, I want the truth. I will be honest about it. I think that we should call off the attack," said Barak, looking stern as he stared at the elders. There was complete silence in the tent, and many of the officers, princes, and elders seemed shocked and confused. "Call off the attack?" asked another elder as he stood up. "Our people have been waiting in great anticipation for this moment." "Yes, the waiting in anticipation for victory, but not in anticipation for defeat. I'm not willing to sacrifice the lives of our 21-year-old men against Sisera's superior odds. If we go into a war with Sisera and lose, all of our young men who did not die in battle will be captured and sacrificed in the fire to the Canaanite god Baal. I cannot support the war wherein the enemy has the advantage of 7-1. It is as though all of the surrounding nations have risen up against us." After Barak's word, the elder sat down. Elder Ram raised his hand and began to speak. "General Barak, priests, officers, princes, and elders," he said, as he struggled to his feet slowly, needing the support of the man next to him. As he arose, his dark blue dashiki-like garment became more visible. Gold and silver thread accentuated the neckline and the sleeves. "My father was a young man when Joshua was alive," he reminded them, as he leaned on his stick and rubbed the side of his face. "My father would tell me stories of how Joshua was outnumbered by the Amorites and the other nations, yet he was victorious. I remember when the deliverer Ehud fought the Moabites, and they outnumbered us. But for now, I say, let's take a poll and see how many are for war and how many are not." Barak and the entire body agreed that they should take the poll. Then they took the poll, and it was deadlocked, 9 for and 9 against. "Barak is the general. Why don't we let him decide?" Suggests the younger elder. One of the princes of Issachar made a counter proposal. "Let's not be hasty, my brothers," he said, adjusting the white turban on his head. "It is getting late, and I think we need to do 2 things. 1, close out this meeting right now. 2, continue this meeting tomorrow morning when Deborah can be here." Yes, 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 everyone stood up in agreement. At the end of the meeting, Captain Enoch approached Barak. "General, we have to check the fortification on the northwest spur before it gets too dark." "Oh, that's right. Let me have a word with the princes of Issachar. Then I'll be ready to go." Barak walked over to the princes. "Peace be unto you, brothers." "Peace, brother Barak. If it's not too much trouble, I would like to ask a favor of you. I have to check the fortifications before it gets too dark. Would you be so kind to inform Deborah about everything that was discussed at this meeting?" "We shall be glad to do so for you, Barak. May God be with you until we see you in the morning." After everybody had departed, the princes of Issachar sent for Deborah to meet with them at the headquarters tent. Deborah came with her handmaid Sarah. When Deborah arrived, the princes of Issachar explained to her everything that she had missed. They told her about the spies who brought the bad news and about the 14 kings that had joined up with Sisera. They gave her overwhelming odds of 7-1. Furthermore, they told her that Barak said that he would not take his men into battle to be slaughtered by Sisera's all-powerful force. They also informed her that the meeting will continue tomorrow morning. After Deborah heard this depressing news, the princes departed, and Deborah hung her head in grief. She sat there for a short while and reflected on the bad news. Then Barak came. He saw her sitting in the tent and her head lowered in grief. And he asked, "Why is thy countenance fallen, Deborah?" She raised her grief-stricken head slowly and looked at him. "What is this I hear that you have called off the attack?" "I did it because I felt that it would be suicide to go up against Sisera's overwhelming numbers," he replied as he walked towards her. "Where's your spirituality? Where is your trust in God? Where is your belief in me?" "Where is it, Barak?" she demanded. He stood there silently staring at her. Then he labored to speak. "I am responsible for the lives of my men. When you came to my house that last time, you said to me, 'Thou will go with me, then I will go. But if thou will not go with me, then I will not go.' Is this not true, Barak?" she inquired with trembling in her voice. "Yes, it's true," snapped Barak, with a little anger. "At that time, I agreed to go with you, and I kept my word. Now you are refusing to go into battle. Doesn't your word mean anything?" "Of course it does, but the situation has changed." "Changed? But the Lord hasn't changed," she retorted, as tears ran down her cheeks. "Barak, I've had enough. You have rejected the Lord and disappointed me. There will be no marriage. I cannot live with a man who has no trust in God to deliver his people from Sisera." She reminded him frantically as she marched out of his presence brokenhearted. Barak stood there and watched her leave. Finally, he walked to the opening of the tent and yelled to her, "A man must do what he has to. You're just like a woman. You blow off steam, just like a hot water pot." Deborah went to her tent. It had gotten dark, so Sarah, her handmaid, lit a small lamp. Then Deborah sank her head into the palms of her hands and sat down. Soon after, Sarah asked, "Is there something that I can do for? Is that I can do for my lady?" "No, thank you, Sarah. I just want to be alone with my thoughts." Deborah reflected on how she came with Barak to Mount Tabor with great hope, a hope about how their relationship developed from one stage to another, from the first time they met until now. She thought about those warm romantic moments at the city of Kadesh when he danced with her and made her feel alive again. There, he asked her for her hand in marriage. When she agreed to go with Barak to Mount Tabor with the Hebrew army, she had great hope that he would put his trust in the Lord. Now, the man whom she was coming to love had refused to lead the Hebrew army and refused to trust in the Lord and even to believe in her. In essence, he shattered all of her hopes, and she felt empty in her stomach. She tried to forget him, but the pain gnawed at her chest. Sarah put out the oil lamp, and Deborah prepared to go to sleep. However, sleep would not come. She thought about when she departed from the outskirts of Bethel and went to Tirzah, and went to Tirzah, the Berith, Kadesh, and now to Tabor. She had come a long way, met many people, and raised their hopes. Now it seemed that all was in vain. As time passed, she sank into a deep despair, and her fortune with Barak seemed very very uncertain. As a spiritual woman, she knew that she could never have any harmony with any man who did not trust in the Lord. It was during the middle of the second night watch, and still there was no sleep. Barak's action weighted heavily upon her, interrupting her rest. She could not even discuss it with her handmaid Sarah because it was too disturbing. During the night, she tossed and turned and got only about an hour and a half of sleep. She seemed to be fearful to think of what the next morning would bring. The only consolation she got was that when she prayed to her Lord, the only consolation that she got was when she prayed to her Lord. Finally, she resigned herself to the fact that at sunrise, the decisive breakup would come. Oh, man. That was chapter 19, 20, and 21. Man, 19, 20, and 21. The boys said, "You don't trust in me?" I can see that. The bottom line for them in the military, man, would have been you're a woman. You've been giving me good sense. I mean, you've been giving me good counsel. But these numbers don't add up. And he don't really trust in the Lord, because if he did trust in the Lord, then the numbers wouldn't matter. The numbers would not have mattered. Come on. What's wrong? What's wrong, my boy? What's wrong, huh? Why are you crying? Calm down. Yeah, the numbers would not have matched. What's wrong? Talk to me. Use your words. Tell me what's going on. What's the matter? Are you okay? All right, let's dry your eyes. Come on. Let's dry your eyes. Let me see. Let me look at you. Let me look at you. You all right? All right. Well, we'll see what comes about it. The next chapter is going to bring up the next day. The battle still ain't came yet, and I was ready for the battle. But the trumpets haven't been blown yet before the battle yet. Sisera gave them till noon for an answer. And they still got to have the meeting the next morning with everybody and go get the towel over there so you can blow your nose. With everybody and including Deborah. Go get that purple towel over there. So I'm pretty sure Deborah's, if it's tied already, hey, quit tripping. Quit tripping and get the purple towel. Climb up there and get it, son. Climb up there and get it. There you go. Good job. I knew you could do it. I knew you had it in you. Breathe. I mean, not breathe. Blow your nose. Good job. Blow the other side. Oh, that's the one. Blow again. Blow again. Oh, blow the other side. Oh, it's all out. So yeah, we'll see. We'll get in the next chapter and see what's gonna happen. At the next reading with Shilo, man. I appreciate all y'all, whoever sat in on it. We almost done with the book, Barak and Deborah United, by Mary L. Windsor and Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. Until next time, shalom. Say shalom. What? Again, get a shalom? Shalom, man. We'll see what's up. Reading with Shilo. We out. You out? Man out. Say man out. Look at you. Look at your feet. Why you look like that? Why you looking like a meanie? Oh, I saw a smirk. Man out. Can I get a man out? Huh? Say man out. Man out.